Welcome back to the Making It podcast. Now, today I'm with Eve, and now this is special because I've actually grown up knowing Eve from a little baby. Our parents know each other. So, this is Eve Jones, and today she's going to be talking about life after graduating because right now you've been going through that sort of period and trying to get to the job you want to pursue.
Yeah.
So, Eve, introduce yourself. Where have you grown up? Where did you go to uni? And what is it you want to pursue?
Okay, so I'm Eve. I'm from Nottingham. I've lived here my whole life, apart from the 4 years I spent at Leeds University. I studied politics and French, and that included living in France for a year. And I graduated last July and have been slowly figuring out what I want to do post grad.
So, when you're at uni, when was it when you discovered what you wanted to do? Maybe it was before uni. When was it when it kind of clicked of you wanted to pursue languages?
Um, I think I kind of always thought, why not? So I did it for GCSE and was good at it. So I thought, well, I'll just continue it. It's a good skill to have, and it's got a lot of skills within it as a discipline. So learning the language, but also the culture. There's a lot of different aspects to it. And then I did it for A level, was quite good at it. So thought, why not do it at uni? So I think because it gave me the chance to live abroad, that was always something I wanted to do. And enabled me to gain so many new skills. Um, whether I want to pursue it going forward, I don't know, but I guess it's a skill you can always use.
So, what is it? So I can be clear on it. I know you've already mentioned it, but what is it the exact thing you want to pursue? Because I thought it was languages.
Okay, so
Explain it a little further. Oh, you're not sure yet.
No,
Okay.
I think because I did a dual discipline degree, it shows that I've always not been able to narrow it down to one thing. And languages and communications and stuff has always interested me. So I'm still open to pursuing communications, whether it's PR, maybe marketing, but I'm starting to think maybe I don't have the creativity needed for that. But kind of communications, crisis response, that kind of image reputation stuff, possibly. So I guess languages, doing it at uni, it forces you to speak to people, it forces you to really use your brain to figure out how you're going to communicate certain messages. Um, and again, another career path that I might be looking to pursue is law. So I think those skills are really transferable, thinking about how you can communicate messages for certain goals.
So, with your course, when you were doing politics and French, which one did you prefer? If you had to pick one or the other.
French was a lot of a smaller course, so I had a good community feel. I think there were about 60 of us in my cohort, so I pretty much knew everyone, and we were all in classes together. We did things outside of uni, so that was really nice. Politics, on the other hand, I think there are about 300, 400 people that do it, so much less of a community feel. So I think I'd say I preferred French because when I look back on my memories, I felt like I just had better relationships.
Was it your third year when you went abroad?
Yeah,
And was it
third year.
France?
Yeah,
Whereabouts
third
in
year,
France was it?
I went to the French Alps and taught English. So I'd never taught before. Well, I'd kind of helped in sixth form classes, but yeah, I was thrown into a middle school and a high school and did 12 hours a week, which some people might think is good. You get paid, I think it was about €800 a month. So not amazing, but all right given
Is that like a living wage, kind of?
yeah,
Yeah.
like I think my rent was about 400, so not too bad. But I was living in the middle of nowhere, so I didn't really need much money to spend on things. It's not like I was going shopping because this little town had like two supermarkets, a few bars, a few cafes, nothing crazy. But yeah, taught English, and I think that experience was when I look back on my degree, it wasn't perfect, didn't love every minute of it, but think it was all worth it for that.
Why didn't you love every minute of it?
It was hard. I started in the COVID year,
Oh, okay.
so I feel like that
So you
really
were out in the
shaped.
French Alps in the COVID year?
No, so I'd started my degree in the COVID
Okay.
year. Luckily, COVID was gone by the time I went to France, but the people in the couple of years ahead of me, most of them hadn't been abroad due to COVID, so there
Yeah.
was nobody at uni to kind of pass on their
Yeah.
experiences. So we just kind of went into it blind. And my whole first year of uni was online. So I think in that time, it's a good time when people first go to uni, you'll know, is you gain your independence for the first time and you kind of really figure things out, whereas we didn't have the chance to do that. So when our second year came around, most of the COVID stuff was gone, and it was just a crazy, intense year. And then we were shipped off
Did
to
you go into
France.
student halls?
Yeah, I was
Okay,
in
so it's almost
halls
like
in
your
first year.
second year was kind of like your
Yeah,
fresher year.
yeah.
Yeah, an interesting
So,
experience. Yeah,
but kind of unfortunate because your second year grades count.
yeah, yeah.
So most of my cohort, we were kind of navigating that line of going out and enjoying
It's like
ourselves
first
for
year
the
and
first
second year
time.
combined,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah. So it was really intense. So then for me, the contrast of that really intense year and then ending up in the Alps where it was really quiet and not a lot going on was such a shock.
Yeah.
Like culturally, socially, it was like I'd done a 180 on my
How was
life.
it? How was it then coming back to uni after doing that experience?
It was good. I really attribute a lot of like the person I am today to that year abroad because again that was tough in its own ways. There was there were no English people. Barely anyone spoke English because it was the middle of nowhere. So it'd be like going to the Lake District, somewhere really remote in the UK or somewhere in the Scottish Highlands. Like people are quite close-minded, usually don't travel that much out of the
Like proper
Alps,
locals.
proper
Yeah.
locals. So I had to kind of find friends. There were other assistants. So I lived with the Spanish assistant and the Italian assistant because we were really close to the Italian border. So most of the kids did Italian, and I think they preferred that to learning English. So I lived with them. They didn't like speaking English for whatever random reasons. So I spoke French with them the whole time, even
Like
though
they had
none of
like
us were
a
French.
hatred towards talking English, or they just didn't like the idea of trying to talk English. Like,
I don't really know. I don't know if it's because they were in France. They thought, let's get in the French zone. I mean, it's good for me because it would have been easier to speak English to them. But actually, I spoke French for that whole time. I'm not saying I'm fluent, but it did force me to be out of my comfort
it's
zone
about to
all
ask.
the
So,
time.
out of a percentage of 100, how fluent would you say you are in French?
If I were to meet a French person on the street, I could converse with them and
Yeah.
understand what they're
Would
saying.
you go to a cafe and get a coffee and a
Yeah, yeah,
croissant? Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's basically what I spent the whole of the year abroad doing. To the point that on my last day, they were giving me free coffees, free croissants, pain au chocolat, saying, "Oh, you've been a very loyal customer." I was like, "Oh, I've spent a whole year going in the bakery and the bars, but okay." Um, but yeah, I'm not fluent in the sense that if you gave me a legal document in French, which has happened at work,
Yeah.
they've they have a kind of French branch, and some random French legal documents have come our way, and they say, "Well, can you work out what this says?" And I'm like, "Well, I can read it, but even if it was in English, I don't understand the legal jargon." So sometimes I feel a bit silly at work because they think, "Oh, did you not live in France?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I taught English. I was doing the alphabet with these kids. I was doing
Not quite the same extent.
stuff." Yeah.
So when you went into third year, so did you do a dissertation? What
Yes.
did you do it on?
So our dissertation was compulsory. I know now in a lot of universities it's not, which really surprises me and kind of annoys me because I think it's the dissertation, not like the
It's
challenge
supposed to be
that's
the
meant
main
to,
thing, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, like that's what you're building up to
Yeah.
in final year. So it was 40 credits, which is I think a third of your final year credits. I did it in politics and I did it on one nation conservatism and whether that was the ideology that was used to form education policy during the pandemic.
So see if you can try and put that into more like simple terms as someone who has no idea what that means.
Okay, so
Like me, because I don't understand
okay.
that.
Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister during COVID, and his politics, we won't get into that, but he claims is one nation, which kind of means you're a conservative, but you care about the welfare state, you care about helping people in need in society and whatnot. So I wanted to look at whether his claims of being a one nation conservative rang true in the policy decisions about education. So the grading, which ended up being quite unfair in the end and favorited like the private schools, and like free school meal policies, which Marcus Rashford had to do a lot of
Oh
campaigning
yeah.
for. So it was really interesting. And I thought it didn't really align with my political beliefs, but I wanted to do something that I didn't know a lot about. Because I think a lot of people pick something that they're really passionate about, which can work for them. But I don't have one thing that I'm really passionate about. So I thought I'll just do something totally random that will keep me interested.
Yeah.
Because you've got to pick something you're interested in. because you do it across the whole year. So yeah, I think I got 65 out of 100, which is a
Well done.
2-1,
That's good. Yeah.
which was quite good, I think.
It's like Uni of Leeds as well. So Uni of Leeds
Yeah,
2-1 is a very good
yeah.
grade.
So I was never aspiring to get the firsts in everything I did. I just kind of wanted to. I took on as many opportunities and different modules as I could at uni. I didn't want to just do one thing and pick a niche and pursue that. So I just kind of dipped my toe into a lot of
Yeah,
things.
you don't need to specialise that early either. You need to
Yeah,
have like a range of
yeah,
what's going on in your like sort of experience. So then you're not just like one thing where
yeah,
you can apply a lot of the skills you've had to loads of different things now. So
yeah.
the main thing I want to kind of pick your brain with a bit is, so when you were in that last year, what was your sort of thought process about what's going to happen after this year?
Okay, so my initial idea was to apply for grad schemes, but that is clearly the idea that everybody has. And nowadays, I did some research for this last year. When our parents went to uni, I think about 5% of the population went to university. Now it's just under 40%. So 40% of the country's youth population is now looking for employment.
Mm.
So these grad schemes are so competitive. It's unbelievable. So I think I applied for maybe 30 grad schemes or grad jobs, got to various different points in the application process. This was while doing final year of uni, so it's a lot to juggle and was unsuccessful. And I think a lot of people feel quite embarrassed or ashamed that they've not been able to get a really good grad job lined up for the second they finish uni. But I think it's really not common, and not enough people talk about that because it's just so competitive and really hard and draining to do all these applications. So you have to do psychometric tests, which are like numerical things, visual things, some like reading comprehension stuff. And for me, I've not done maths since I was 16.
Yeah.
I was good at maths, but I've just not pursued that path. So finding myself in my final year of uni trying to write a diss, trying to prepare for like French speaking exams, and trying to apply for like a million jobs.
It's too much.
I was
Isn't
having
it?
to
Yeah.
retrain myself, like reteach myself GCSE level maths while doing all this.
Mm.
So you've got to really commit to the application process and you've got to do it early. I'd say August, September, they start opening up. Find some online tests to practice. I mean, I feel quite well practiced now because I did so many applications. But yeah, you've got to commit. And I think you've got to know exactly what you want. You can't apply half-heartedly. Like, you've got to really know.
So if you're saying August, September is like the best time to start, when was it that you started doing it?
I think it was around then.
Okay. So
So I think,
what do you think, if you've done it at that sort of period of time, why do you think you were unsuccessful?
so I think one thing I'm struggling with even now and trying to navigate is that my approach to my education, as I sort of took control of it from my A levels and then uni, was to get quite a breadth of topics covered, of skills gained. And I'm finding that in the modern world, that's potentially not the best idea. From experience, well, from my friends' experiences, if you pursue a niche and get all the experiences to do with that niche and then happen to find a grad job for that niche, you're in really good stead.
Yeah.
So I've got friends who did certain business management stuff, really interested in like supply chain and did all their dis around supply chain, did work experience in that, and then got a supply chain grad scheme. Perfect. But for me, I never wanted to pick something early on and commit to it. So I've tried to do a bit of everything. And I think I've realised that now applying for a grad scheme, they'd rather have somebody with a niche,
Oh, okay.
or they'd rather have somebody who's done a year in industry in that. So even when you're applying for like a marketing thing, I believe I have all the necessary skills, but my CV doesn't say did an internship in marketing in this year or did a year in industry. So I think a lot of recruiters and HR would rather you just had done that experience already so they can just kind of slot you into what they do.
Would you say that stems from not specifically knowing what you wanted to do, though? So you were trying to pick up all the skills and experience, applying to an idea of what you want to
Yeah.
do, but because it wasn't specific.
Yeah.
So if you were to kind of go back to that point now, like even in this point now, do you know what that specific thing is?
No.
So where do you see yourself kind of taking your steps forward in finding what that is?
So I think what I always was scared to do was to pick something, commit to it, and then end up limiting myself. But I think I've realised if I keep not pursuing anything out of fear of being too niche, I just won't do anything. So I think going forward, my next approach with applying for jobs is just pick something
Yeah.
and see where it goes from there. Because if the alternative is doing nothing and not gaining new skills, then what's the point? So I think my advice would be honestly just do something. So it might not be what you want to do, but that might open a door into something else.
Yeah. So speak to me about that fear of fear of thinking it's not the right thing.
Yeah. Well, this is still something I'm questioning.
Is it because maybe you're worried about investing your time into it and then it's not the thing you wanted to do?
Yeah.
So is it sort of like now you're kind of thinking just go for one thing
Yeah.
and like at least it's more in the direction of where I want to go?
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speak to the listeners right now about what work you are doing right now. So after graduating, speak to me about your life after you did graduate and what your life is right now.
Okay, so I graduated in the July and moved home and had zero idea what I wanted to do. So I had a bit of time off, went on a couple of holidays, and then in the August, September, I started applying for things. Again, I applied for the next round of graduate schemes, had a couple of interviews, which I didn't get, which is really crushing, especially when you get so far in these quite grueling grad scheme processes. To get so close and not get it is really demoralizing because you've got to pick yourself up and do it all over again. But it happens to so many people. So in the September, I got a job at a law firm doing. It's largely admin based. It's basically putting all of the clients and their documents and their information into the system so that the fee earners and the lawyers can start doing their work. And this job's been really good for me because it's given me office experience. So previously, I'd worked in shops, I'd worked in a nursery, I'd done my year abroad, but I hadn't worked in a corporate setting. So I think this has been really good for me because it's exposed me to a lot of like corporate day to day. I don't know, like the lifestyle of it.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
And exposed me to a lot more jobs that you just don't know exist. I think, especially growing up, my parents are teachers, a lot of their friends are teachers. You don't know what a lot of the jobs are. So this has at least shown me what's out there. It's currently in a finance department. So strangely, it's even made me think, oh, maybe I'm interested in the kind of commercial finance analyst work, which I would have never have thought I'd be interested in. So I think just get yourself into a company and see where you go from there. That would be my advice. Because hospitality jobs are great while you're at uni, but I think beyond that, there's only so many skills you can develop. Whereas if you get in a corporate setting, you never know what door that's going to open.
So, do you ever think you will find that one thing where it's going to click and you'll be like, this is what I wanted to do? Or do you think, because maybe I'm just kind of thinking from an outside perspective, maybe you're trying to chase, like a specific thing you want to do. You're waiting for that light bulb moment. And one day it may come, do you know what I mean? You may wake up and be like, yeah, this is what I want to do. But maybe it's about enjoying that sort of process of just like you say, like you're doing that admin at a law firm, but you've picked up skills and you'll find maybe the finance is what you want to do.
Yeah.
And like maybe it's about focusing on enjoying that process of like finding that thing, that journey.
Yeah.
Rather than always thinking, oh, when will that thing kind of hit me or what I want to do?
Yeah.
So speak to you about the sort of mindset you want to go on forward. So you spoke about the approach you want to go on forwards in terms of, trying different things, just going for a certain niche and seeing if you can learn something about yourself from it. But speak to you about the sort of mindset you want to go into in this next few steps in your life.
So I think I'm realizing every day, the more I work at this firm and just the more I hear about other people's careers and the path they're pursuing, I've realized I want something that's going to challenge me mentally. Like, I love using my brain. I love kind of being out of my comfort zone. And that's what I sought to do at uni by going on my year abroad in the middle of nowhere. I like challenges. So I think I've realised I want to be challenged, and maybe this perfect career is not going to fall in my lap, and I need to challenge myself by picking something a bit out there and just going with it.
Yeah.
So whether that's, I don't know, I'm thinking like consulting, or I'm also considering pursuing like the legal route, because the law does
Be a French
interest me.
lawyer.
Possibly, I might brush up on my French legal jargon, but yeah, I think I need to be using my brain, and that can come in any format. It doesn't need to be a perfect linear career. And let's face it, we're going to be working for decades.
Yeah.
So we don't need to pick one thing and pursue it. I just think maybe I'm tipping into wasting time and should just pick something. But I think, again, this isn't really spoken about. The kind of financial aspect is at uni, you meet a lot of people who've got connections, who've had opportunities, whether it's through the schools they've been to or their parents, and they kind of fall into things. And as somebody who's not had that, it's quite hard to think to to accept that you're going to have to go out there yourself and find these connections, find these opportunities. So for me, it's always been on my mind, well, I need a job that's going to pay me enough that I can pay the rent, that I can have a quality of life, because I've always been interested in moving to London, but some of the starting salaries you see of like 24 grand in London, I don't know how anyone
Yeah. I've kind of fallen
can afford
last time
that,
on that. Yeah.
because the rents are extortionate, and then the cost of living baffles me. So that's always been a factor in my mind as well, is picking something that will make me financially stable enough to live where I want to live and all that. So there's a lot of factors that go into deciding what to pursue. And a lot of people say just take the risk, rough it for a few years. But yeah, I think fear is a big thing. But if you don't take the risk, then you potentially don't gain anything.
So what do you think was missing when you were at uni? Where if you were to go back and say something to your younger self in those next couple of years, maybe before you went to the French Alps, maybe in your final year, what would you say to your younger self now to kind of maybe fill a gap or push yourself in a bit more of that direction you wanted to? Maybe what you've learned now you would apply to yourself then.
I think maybe to throw myself like head first into things more, be a bit bolder. So I did a lot of things, like I was a course rep, I worked at the union, I was a student ambassador, I did a bit of stuff with the like Leeds Student TV and radio, but I feel that I never really took the reins of something. I didn't have my own radio show, or I didn't have a role in a society. I just kind of was a smaller part of a lot of different things. So I think on reflection, maybe I would want to be a bigger part of one thing,
Yeah.
just to have a bit more agency, a bit more confidence. Because I think you've got to be confident to have a career. You've got to, and I think you're really good at this. You have an idea of something you want to do and you just do it. And I think I need to be more like that.
Yeah.
So just apply for a job, even if you think you're not qualified. You never know, if they like the look of you, they might just take you on and you can go from there.
I think if you're interested in maybe understanding maybe why I kind of have that skill, I'd probably say it's two things. I'd say one of them is probably understanding like we're not here forever. So it's like at the end of the day, what does it mean to anyone? Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like we speak about it on the podcast a lot, and the listeners will know that sort of like fear of judgment when you're doing something. Like, what will other people think? Is this going to go wrong? All those sort of those fears that you've spoken about. I think the idea is it's almost like teaching yourself like no one actually cares
Yeah.
at all because we see everything through our own head. We care so much about what other people are thinking, but realistically, they're in their own head.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I have conversations regularly with my friends about that, and I think the other one is just that idea of it's bridging that gap of like expanding that circle of discomfort. So I don't know, maybe doing that punt of having more agency in your life. So there could be something where maybe you're out with your family or something, and you're at a table, and you're used to maybe. I'm not saying this is something you do, but just an example. You used to maybe your parents going up to the waiter and asking about something, but you could stand up and do it yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like taking those steps in building that confidence, but that's the beauty of it. You can always start from somewhere.
Yeah.
So you can maybe even jot down your sort of circle of what you feel like you're confident in, and then maybe there's something you want to be confident in, and then write that outside the circle. And then once you've got to that, build a circle around that, and the circle just expands. So I'd say it's doing it and getting the experience and building that confidence, and it's also realizing like, no one does really like care apart from you. And when you realize that everyone else's opinion is irrelevant, I don't know if I've gone on some crazy tangent there with that. Then you can kind of, do those things easier. Because why does it matter to anyone else but yourself?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And I guess if people have opinions about what you're doing that are negative, then you don't care for their opinion.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
why
But
does it
that's the
matter?
thing. I was speaking to a friend recently, and like I said to him, whenever I fear about other people's judgment, it's always people that I'm actually not that close to.
Yeah.
I would never think about my close mate and think, oh, what are they going to think about me doing this? Do you know what I mean? But that's the thing. We care so much about general society,
Yeah.
what the general public will think. When realistically, it's the people who really care for us. They won't care at all what we do unless it's something you're going down a really dark slope.
I read something and it said you wouldn't want the opinion of someone that you wouldn't ask for their advice. So if you wouldn't go to them because you think they're wise and they've got good opinions and good thoughts, then it doesn't matter what they think.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have any, see any value in that.
You basically put what I said into one sentence very easily.
See, I'm a communicator. That's the skills I've been building.
So, has there ever been like a certain experience within your life so far which did make you think, I want to do communications? Or like a certain person, maybe some advice you did get, which kind of kicked you onto this journey, even though you don't specifically know the niche? Was there any like experience you had, something that kind of can come to your mind, which kind of ticked you in this direction a bit?
So I've always been into politics, and I think before I decided I wanted to do politics at uni, I did want to do law, but I had to write a project at school and I found myself gravitating. I was looking at the NHS and the legal structures behind the NHS and whether it could be kind of unpicked. I think that was a bit bold for a 17-year-old. But I found myself sort of leaning towards the political aspect of it. So the reasons why the NHS was created and who supports it today and whatnot. Um, so then off the back of that, I got some work experience with NHS blood and transplant through someone I know. And I got to go to Parliament. I got to meet a couple of MPs. I got to go to a select committee about men's mental health and all of these things. It was a 1 week experience, really ignited something in me.
Yeah.
Like, I came home so passionate about doing something political. So I think this is where a lot of my confusion of career paths has come from, because you see a lot of PR and communications grad schemes, and they're based a lot on creative stuff, like working with influencers and stuff like that, and it just doesn't feel like a bit of me. And these are like the big flash grad schemes with companies like L'Oreal, Disney, stuff like that. And I think it's like you naturally gravitate towards the big companies and the big names because it feels like a safe bet.
Yeah.
Like if you were to get a grad scheme with one of those companies, you'd feel quite secure in it. Whereas if you get a job with a company no one's ever heard of, it's a bit more nerve-wracking. But I think ultimately that's what I need to do because I'm so interested in the aspect of communications, which is like political comms and engagement. There's a lot of like crisis response stuff. I don't know loads about it, but yeah. So it was that experience that I did in year 12 that made me realise I am passionate about politics and that kind of stuff. So from that point, I really like people. I like talking to people. Well, do I like people? I like social interaction. I like this sort of being stimulated by different people's opinions and experiences. So I know I need something fast paced. I know I need constant change. I really like that kind of thing. I don't want to do one thing where every day is predictable. So again, a lot of my uncertainty about what to do is just figuring out what is that job that I'm looking for? What can give me the balance of using my brain, working on projects myself, but also working with other people in that kind of collaborative environment.
So how do you think you can then do that?
I don't know, which is why I've arrived at this point of realizing I just need to do something.
Okay.
Because the more you do, the more you figure out, okay, so this job ticks these boxes, but not these. So I'll move on to something else, see what boxes that ticks. And then eventually, I guess, it will lead to finding a niche, maybe when I'm 50, that I really enjoy.
But that's the thing. It's like, do you ever think to yourself like, oh, like time's ticking a bit. Like I need to find what this
Yeah.
niche is. So, what will you say to yourself now to kind of embrace that a bit? You know, after this conversation, is there anything you'd say to yourself to understand maybe I shouldn't be waiting around for this thing to click? Like you say, you should just be doing something and just like picking up the experience and maybe get closer to that. Because maybe one day that click will never happen,
Yeah.
and turns out the whole journey was what you're doing
That
right
was
now.
it. Yeah.
Because I'll give you your kudos. Like on your CV, there's loads of different things you've done.
Mm.
Like I noticed you've done like food bank volunteering, you've done loads of shadowing, you've done that experience you've done. Like it's, and you say to me like, "Oh, Dan, you've done it," but you've done loads of things yourself. You know, you've done a
Yeah.
year abroad. Like you have got a great CV. Maybe your confidence has just been knocked a little bit because you've had these big grad like applications,
Yeah.
and then like you say, it's demoralizing when you get to the end. But maybe the journey is what you're doing right now, and it's embracing that a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess one of the key themes that emerges from all of this is resilience, which I think is so necessary um, in the modern world. Like having been to uni, and I think that's what I am glad I've done. I've done a lot of experiences that have made me resilient, being out of my comfort zone a lot. So that's something I would advise to anybody at any age is take opportunities that make you uncomfortable, just so that when tough times come, you can bounce back
Yeah.
and it's not a scary and unfamiliar place to be a bit unsettled. But yeah, I've realised I want to use my brain. So going forward, my new approach is to just pick something. I think I want to pick something that seems hard, because even if it's difficult and you find out that the job's not for you a couple of weeks or months in, it doesn't matter. You can move on. So, yeah, the journey's important. I think you're not going to discover what you want to do overnight, but it sounds naff. But it's really stuck with me when somebody said it's not rejection, it's redirection.
I heard that once. Where did you hear that?
Oh, I don't know, years ago.
I heard it off, you know, that Stephen Bartlett, Direct
Yeah,
Discovery.
yeah.
I heard it there.
Well, if he's saying it, then it must be true. But it has, I think sometimes you hear these things and you think, oh gosh, that's a cliche. But that one has stuck with me and it's made me think, okay, well, if this employer didn't want me for this job, it's not personal. Well, it might be. Maybe that's not. It just means it wasn't right for you. So take the experience and build on it.
So I was working in the pub last night, and one of my friends who works there as well came up to me, and he was like, "Oh, I'm feeling quite stressed. I've just done an interview, and bear in mind, it's quite rare for what he wants to do. You get an interview, so he's finally got this interview, and it's online, and as soon as he gets asked, he freezes. So for him, it feels like a massive opportunity missed. Now, for you, you've been through that sort of experience of being through a lot of applications. You built that resilience. What would you say to someone like that?
I think you have to see it as not a judgment of you as a person. And that was something I really struggled with when I was younger and until quite recently, that when you're applying for a job, you're not on the stand being questioned and grilled for your life. They just want to know if you're suitable for their company and that role. Your values may not align with that company's, or you might not be as best suited as someone else for that role. It's never a criticism of you as a person. And I think I like to see it as I kind of detach my personal self from my professional self. So it's not, I don't know, it's not a personal attack
I
on
know, I know
you
exactly what you're
if
saying.
you don't
Yeah.
get a role. So you just kind of have to take a step back and think, it's not me they're looking at, it's my professional skill set. And I think having that detachment takes away the judgment and then therefore a bit of the fear. So you can see I'm putting my professional self forward. Are they going to like it? Are they not? Oh well.
No, that's really good. Now, coming up towards the end of the podcast, is there anything else you want to get off your chest at all or say to the listeners, or do you feel like you've managed to get everything out?
Um, I think you can't let the rejections knock your confidence, because even my friends now who are from an external point of view successful, who have good jobs, who've had good opportunities, they've also been rejected. So timing and luck are huge parts of it, and you can never second guess timing and luck. That has nothing to do with you as a person at all. And I think nobody's looking at what you're doing, and you might look at other people, but comparison is not useful at all because it's all circumstantial and it's all dependent on the person. So yeah, I think I remind myself, even the people that I think are successful have had knockbacks, have had problems getting to where they are. So nobody's journey is perfect. So you've just got to find what's right for you and roll with it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Eve, for coming on the podcast. That's been Eve Jones. Comment down below what you think and let us know in any sort of way on our TikTok, Instagram, on our email, makingitpoddy@gmail.com. But thank you for coming on. That was really good and really insightful. Thank you very much. Right on time. Feel so right.